The first of many weird complexities in the assassin skill tree starts with the blade branch of the trap tree. This is because they have multiple layers of functionality and oddly specific lists of what they can and cannot trigger or carry with them during use. Though at least it's fairly consistent on where it sources its damage from, which is your primary weapon, and that they all get pretty much the smaller bonus percentage-wise from two-handers than one-handers. Though it can get a bit fiddly with dual wielding, but it will always take your primary weapon, which is a video in and of itself, even though it is usually, and I have to say usually here, your glove side weapon. Now, starting at the top and working our way down, we have the only deployable blade trap, Blade Sentry. A spinning trap that patrols a region for several seconds, dealing damage to any enemies that pass through it, with their damage provided both by the skill itself, but also the weapon you're wielding, as we said earlier. And in 2.4, both of these values got a fairly significant boost, and even got combined with synergies in the other blade skills. The only real drawback of it is that it has a fairly long next delay on damage, meaning stacking them up on a single target does not work too well, so it's often better to spread them out to harm the crowd instead. Now, as far as what is carried along with the Sentry, it carries attack rating boost, critical strike effects, elemental damage, and durations, as well as the basics like minimum and maximum damage, as well as percent damage increases, though nothing else. So you won't ever get a chance to cast, leech, or even damage plus modifier on it, and of course most of this is affected by the skill's damage penalty. On the plus side though, for this and Fury, your percent damage increases such as Fanaticism, Fortitude, etc. are applied to the plus damage on the skill itself, so you can get into some pretty solid damage outputs even if the character screen does not accurately show them. This is also true of the favorite skill of the batch, as we said, Blade Fury, which, being a direct cast skill, can do a lot more in terms of functionality, while following many of the same rules as its deployable counterpart, at least whenever it comes to how the percent penalties work. The nice thing about it being a direct attack, though, is that despite locking you in place like Inferno does, it carries on it many more of the useful features you'll find on normal ranged physical attacks. This includes leeching, open wounds, crushing blow, freeze, blind, slow, not to mention knockback, minus enemy resist, ignore target defense, rest in peace, mana and life per kill, and a plethora of other abilities. To the point where it's almost quicker to list what it does not provide, with two of the most unfortunate exclusions being things like the damage plus you find on grief and the chance to cast on attack effect, though you do get chance to cast on striking and kill with it. Probably the nicest thing about Blade Fury though is that it does all this while pairing with a more caster-oriented playstyle, since neither attack rate or casting speed affect the rate at which you throw the stars after windup, meaning all you need to do is focus on boosting that damage and getting trigger effects with it. And unlike many other range attacks, this doesn't hurt your weapon durability, meaning you can even do this with ethereal weapons, which makes it able to be quite punchy at a range. Now, the same cannot be said for number 3, Blade Shield, since it can break weapons. So don't use it if you're running an ethereal Blade Fury setup, just trust me, it won't be good. But if you are going with more traditional weapons, it can be pretty interesting as a tool, though it also breaks a few of the rules for the previous skills and straddles the middle ground in what it carries on it compared to the other two. Basically, it can use all the functions of Blade Sentinel, but it also provides Leech, Prevent Monster Heal, plus percent elemental damage, minus enemy resists, target defense modifiers, and is the only Blade skill that can use the damage plus effect from things like Grief, or the chance to cast on attack effects, though it will only trigger on a successful attack. The weirdest quirk for it though is that unlike the other two blade skills, Shield does not get the percent damage boost from its skill damage, so it will do quite a bit less than other options, especially if you're built up for them. Some other things to remember about Blade Shield though is that the damage is based on the weapon you're wielding when it hits, not when you cast it, and while Blade Shield triggers in melee range, it is not affected by your weapon range. So a dagger with it will have the same range as a polearm, which does fly counter to a lot of other skill functionality in the game. There are some semi-exploitable things you can do with spam casting the skill, but due to the high cost of Blade Shield, it's going to be a bit too expensive to do it for long. Overall, the blade skills are severely underestimated and can wreck some serious nonsense when used properly. So do you use them, or are they outside your comfort zone? Mention them down below, and be sure to check out some of the other more popular traps on screen now, and of course, a special thanks to channel members, patrons, and viewers like you for making this content possible.